You are listening to Vicky Goes On and On with Vicky Stokes and James Wells. No, they're living a really bad life.
So I've tried to I've tried to create a wall of sound. But we'll see.
But not in a Phil Spector kind of way.
No.
Because that went down a dodgy path, didn't it?
Yeah, but that was nothing to do with his technical ability, was it?
I don't know, because
he was still good.
Maybe it drove him to insanity. I don't know. I know nothing about him apart from the Wall of Sound
and the wigs,
great Christmas album,
and the wigs.
Bloody wigs.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Like literally every time he turned up to a trial, it was in a different fucking. There was the Sideshow Bob one. There was fucking a Beatles one. It's ridiculous, It was it was almost like he was paying homage to the artist he works with, and it's like, okay, today I'm going to look like fucking Paul McCartney. Tomorrow
did he do an album with Sideshow Bob?
He did,
because I know exactly the wig you're talking about. That is a good.
That weird kind of grey one.
Yeah,
it looked like it was really dry, didn't it? Like really dry. Like, surely you can moisturise a wig. Surely.
with hand cream.
There must
I don't know. I don't know a lot about wigs.
No.
But I wouldn't be opposed to owning some, like Moira from Schitt's Creek. Just have all these.
I haven't.
Then I wouldn't have to dye my hair. Oh, it's good.
Yeah, it's on my list. It's good. Do you know what? If I ever lose my hair, if I could get a convincing wig. If I could get a convincing wig, I would do it.
No. Unless it's
technology has moved on now.
All toupees I've seen are so obviously toupees.
There was a guy on First Dates, and I think he was like a stand-up comedian or something, and now he's like a social media star, and he revealed that he was wearing a wig, and he was quite happy to tell people this. I wouldn't tell people, to be honest, but he was quite happy to tell people that he was wearing a wig. And he went on.
What's the point then?
Well, no, but he went on the date with a girl, and he told her, and fuck mine. It's not like a rug, like it's not like an Elton John thing. It is. There was
a guy. I was in a pub once. There's a surprise. Most of my stories. I was in a pub. No.
Vicky walks into a bar.
And this dude was it was so obviously a wig. James, a blind person, could see that it was a wig, right? And the girl I was with, I went, oh, check out the rug on this guy. And she was like, what? I said, the guy's toupee. And she said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The wig was brown. His hair was not brown. It was so obvious. It was
but
disturbing.
Look at my hair though. I've got brown hair. Well, mousy brown hair. But my beard,
but your hair doesn't go like, there's not like a line in the middle of your hair.
No, I know what you mean.
Immediately changes colour.
But people's hair do change.
No. James, I swear to you,
look,
if you saw this wig, you would.
This is going to sound really geeky now, but Peter Capaldi as Doctor Who. So Peter Capaldi's hair has gone very white as he's got older.
Yes.
But he's got a strip right at the bottom of his hair, which is dark. He's dark brown.
But that's,
how do you not know that wasn't what that guy was going through? He's gradually.
Mate, I'm telling you now.
The problem with me is that I've never noticed a wig.
Hell!
Like even on like movies and stuff or TV shows, people are going, look at that, fuck it, that's terrible.
No, I'm not observant enough.
I am observant, but it's hair, isn't it?
No, you can tell.
Aside from Phil Spector, I've never noticed a wig.
Gary Glitter.
Does he wear a wig as well?
Oh, fuck off. Yeah. Just get out. Get out now. Right. We are going to talk about one of the best, in my opinion, and I think yours too, one of the best franchises ever. Back to the Future, Part 1.
Back to the Future Part 1.
Yeah. So,
which at the time wasn't a Part 1. It was just a film.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Go on.
I once had an argument with a guy that I used to work with. Because I called it the Back to the Future Trilogy. And he said,
obviously.
Thank you. He said, but it wasn't originally intended to be a trilogy. No, but fine. I agree. Fine. That's fine.
But it is a trilogy now.
It's a trilogy.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, but it was only said to be continued in the video release.
Video release,
yeah. Fine. So now it's a trilogy.
Yeah.
So thank you for agreeing.
He was just trying to be a clever dick.
Well, it wasn't going to wash with me, son. And I said that to him. We also had arguments about what was more likely, a robot uprising or a zombie uprising. Obviously, a zombie uprising.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just decided on a Saturday.
I don't know, actually.
That was the thing. No, I don't know either. Probably robots. I've seen that episode of Black Mirror.
Could be anything, couldn't it?
All of them. Well, yeah.
Anyway,
that was beside the point. I'm just happy to hear that you agree that it's a trilogy.
Well, look, it is one of the greatest.
And that's the end of it. Yes.
Aside from being a fantastic trilogy, Part 1 is one of the greatest films ever made. And I don't even know how you and I ever got into the subject of how we both loved it so much. I feel like...
I know, it's true.
I feel as long as I've known you, I've known that you love Back to the Future, which is really strange, isn't it? Because I remember a few years ago, I bought you a couple of little Back to the Future bits, didn't I? Do you remember? I bought you
Yes, I have. There's
trading cards.
Trading cards with like a gum, with gum in it.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And I have it on my kitchen cupboard.
Fantastic.
I was tempted one day to see if the gum was still chewable.
But you know exactly what kind of gum that's going to be. It's going to be that.
Oh, exactly.
Pink, thick gum, very fucking tasty.
It's supposed to be, sugar, powdered sugar on it. But let's be frank, that tastes like chalk.
It's lovely though.
So here's the thing.
Go on.
Every single Back to the Future movie is now in the past. When I learned that, which was a few years back now, last year, I think?
Yeah.
Maybe longer. I don't know what year it is. That made me feel really old because I remember most of my childhood just being like, wow, 2015, that's such a long time ago, and the build up to hoverboards, that never happened. And I was very upset.
When we get to Part 2, which we will do.
Oh, yes, we will, of course.
We'll discuss all this because this is...
Yes. No, that's true. That's a good point.
Because I guess, the intent is to talk about Part 1. Part 2, Part 3, and then have a little retrospective look at the trilogy.
Of course. All right. So here's the thing that we started discussing, and I really want to get into. So in Part 1, Marty meets Doc at Twin Pines Mall, and Doc does the test with Einstein in the car in the DeLorean.
Yep.
And the car disappears and comes back, and Einstein's watch proves that, clock or whatever, proves that it's worked, right? And then a van appears and they start shooting at Doc. Marty gets in the DeLorean and Marty drives off, hits 88 miles an hour and travels back in time.
9:55, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
When I was a kid, I had no idea what the hell all of that was about, except that, Doc's life was being threatened.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, it's the Libyans. Did you get, because as an adult, I get it. Did you understand that he stole the plutonium?
No. So I totally agree with you. Like when you're younger, it all goes over your head. And I've watched it so many times, and there's so many layers to it, and there's very subtle hints and stuff. I didn't realise that he made a deal with the Libyans until much later in life, and said to them, "Oh, if you help me get this plutonium, I'll build you a bomb." And then he fucked off. Hence why the Libyans are now coming after him. What gets me though, them Libyans, why are they driving a fucking camper van? But
I don't even think I noticed that.
they're like,
even on more recent viewings, I don't think I noticed
I mean,
it.
they're shit terrorists. They're whinging and whining because they can't fucking chase a 17-year-old boy in a DeLorean. They're driving a fucking camper van and their gun doesn't work properly.
In the book,
What the fuck? Yeah, because
that James bought me, I read a bit of it.
Yep.
It does say that the Libyan driver of the van, makes a mistake and should have gone one way to catch Marty, but goes the other way, then realizing his mistake. By this point, Marty's reaching 86 miles an hour, 87 miles an hour, 88 miles an hour, and then there's a barn. And he crashes into the barn.
Yeah.
So that sort of answers that, I guess. But are we taking the book as canon? It's a novelization of the movie.
They're still shit terrorists, aren't they? Come on.
Oh, they really are. They really are. But yeah, I mean, I didn't get it. Did you? I remember as an adult reading an article that was like, "Oh, how are Doc and Marty even friends?"
Do you know what?
I never thought about it.
I was just about to ask you that because obviously, once he's gone back in time, it changes things because Doc first meets Marty in 1955.
Oh,
but prior to that, how the fuck were they friends? Like, what happened there? Like, how did they? Because Marty turns up, doesn't he? He turns up in that morning. He turns up at Doc's place. Doc's not there. He plays one chord on the guitar on that massive amp, and then Doc phones his own house and says, "Oh, Marty, I'm glad you're there." It's like your best friend, but they just don't seem the type of. They don't seem like. Where have they met? Where have they met? And how have they become friends? Even Principal Strickland is saying, "Are you still hanging around with that weird mad scientist guy?" It's like, where have they met?
So there is an answer, and I sort of don't care that there's an answer because it doesn't. I don't know. I mean, if it's not in the films, really, and the 3 novelizations, right? But if it's not in the films, then does it really matter? The co-writer and producer said, well, it was sort of explained in what was the original script that really did not get made. Like, that is not, it's so far removed from the movie.
Yeah.
That basically Marty broke into the lab and somehow became friends with him because you know, Doc, as we know, has a reputation for being very eccentric around town and whatever. And so he just, as a teenage boy, decides to break in to, I don't know, be nosy. And he just hits it off with Doc, which is a very mundane answer, sure. But also, I don't know that I cared when I watched it when I was a kid.
I mean, I know what you're.
I think I just accepted that, well, of course they would be friends. Why wouldn't they be friends?
Yeah, you never question it, do you? You never question why they're friends.
Here's a question that I've got for you, because I have not finished reading it, but I did do an English degree and only read 4 books. So I feel like I'm the sort of person that can just extrapolate a lot. I'm in a past. I got a 2-1. I'm all right. Here's the thing that I have always thought quite annoying, really. You know, in 2 and 3, when people call Marty chicken, he gets really angry.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole thing. And it's not a thing in 1.
No.
I think by the time I was watching 2 and 3, because it was a few years later, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I forgot and I thought, oh, maybe. And then I remember years after watching, because I love 2, as you know.
Yeah.
Then years later, I watched 1 intently rather than it's just on. And I was like, never once does this come up as a thing. Isn't that annoying?
Yeah. I mean, 1 was made as a standalone film, wasn't it? And the ending is supposed to be just a kind of joke, isn't it? It's just where we're going, we don't need roads, and then they zoom off. But then 2 and 3, because it was so popular, they made 2 and 3, but they made 2 and 3 together as like back to back. obviously in number 2 they go back to the events in number 1, which is very clever how they do it. But with 2, there's a lot of setups for 3, so you could almost treat them as one big film.
That is true, isn't it?
The whole chicken and yellow thing obviously comes into 2, but they bring it back into play in number 3.
Yeah.
But you're right. I've never noticed that. I've never realised that
it's not. Yeah, it's not a thing at all in 1.
I've got a question for you. So, when Marty goes back to 1955, and after he's left the barn and he's put the DeLorean behind the billboard and he's walked into Hill Valley. He's walked into to the main town, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Oh," he says, "This has got to be a dream." Now that trope comes up a lot in films, right? Be honest. I kind of know when I'm dreaming and when I'm fucking not. I know at the time.
I do think that
when you're dreaming, you do.
You fucking know you're dreaming.
You feel like you're in it, but there are times when
you know you're dreaming.
There are times when I've woken myself up because I'm not enjoying this dream.
Yes.
So if this was to
happen,
if this was to
there are times when.
Go on.
Well, I was going to say there are times not when I've woken myself up, but in the morning, you know, when you're coming out of that dream, that there's a sort of split second that's probably not a second long. You know, it's probably a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, was that a dream? Oh, that was a dream. But I've never. I don't know about you. Maybe my dreams are just shit. I mean, they're fucking annoying, my dreams. But I know that it's a dream. Do you know what I mean? I've never been in reality and been like, oh, I need to pinch myself. Is it a dream?
And this is what I mean.
No, I know.
So
it is an annoying trope. You're right.
If this actually happened to you and you suddenly went back in time, and you were physically, your feet were on the ground and you were
terra firma,
awake, and you were looking at this world around you, and you knew that this was not 2020 or whatever. You wouldn't go, this has got to be a dream. You'd be like, I've fucking gone back in time. You would be honest with yourself.
Have you ever taken an hallucinogen?
No.
Like acid or no? Me
neither. No, only weed.
So
that's not really,
which is not a hallucinogen.
No. So
no.
That's as far as it goes.
It's not hallucinogenic, right?
No. Well, it depends how paranoid you get.
Neither of us. Yeah, but it doesn't make you hallucinate and go on a trip.
No.
So maybe we're not the right people to double check this with. I'll ask my druggie friends.
Okay.
I'll see if it doesn't really seem really, you know, because
but he knows where he's come from.
Of course,
Doc has already said it's a fucking time machine.
He just watched, and he just watched Einstein demonstrate
it.
And Doc, right? Because it's a remote control thing.
He's been told,
and then he gets
once he gets to 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious shit. He then. I mean, fair enough. He's trying to get away from being shot. I get it. But then he's like, oh my God, this has got to be a dream. No, you know what the fuck has happened.
But then he goes to the diner, right? Oh, but you know what? Sorry, I've just figured that out.
What?
Because American dollar bills have not changed in the same way that our money has.
Oh, are you talking about when he just pays for his coffee, his black coffee?
When he goes to the diner. Yeah.
Do you know that? Do you know one of the things about the film? I mean, I've always watched it. I mean, I've always watched it. Like I've watched it since I was little. But I think Back to the Future is one of the reasons why fundamentally I prefer Pepsi to Coke.
I think that you are a psychopath who has no taste buds.
No.
I like Coca-Cola. Pepsi tastes like wee-wee. and James is wrong.
I'm not saying I don't like Coca-Cola, but I'm saying I prefer Pepsi. And I think Back to the Future might have something to do with that. It's very prominent.
Well, I think that you need to grow up.
No, but it is though, isn't it? It's very prominent.
I know, and it annoys me that it is, because I'm such a Coca-Cola fiend.
I mean, there is a lot of.
Also, I wear Adidas and not Nike.
No, see, I like Nike as well. So maybe, it's really.
Oh, mate, you need to. Okay, here's my problem. I've watched Wayne's World more than once.
Yeah.
It's been discussed. Well, it's a fucking problem in my life. I don't know if I've ever said this to you, but I've never watched it with anyone, right, before. And just before Mead's wedding, Susan and I flew to the States for her wedding, and we stayed in a hotel at Heathrow because we really wanted to get the maximum experience and not miss the flight, and we were really paranoid. So Susan and I are in this hotel room, and Wayne's World's on Netflix, and I had my tablet with me or something. So we're sitting there watching it together, and after about 15 or 20 minutes, I felt, I don't know, really like exposed and vulnerable, because it suddenly became really clear to me that basically I was Wayne Campbell. and I, at one point, I turned to her and I said, I'm just him. I'm just Mike Myers. She was like, yeah, there's a lot of that in you. Sure.
Oh, well, she agreed.
But like, no. Well, she was like, I can see
where you're coming from.
I can see that this has been an influence in your life, but also you're like Ali Sheedy from Breakfast Club, because I made her watch that one time.
Yeah.
And you're also like so-and-so, and you're also like so-and-so. And I was like, well, that's even worse. I'm just like an amalgamation of all these various characters. And so I can see where you're coming from, but Coca-Cola's better though. That was the point of that fucking story.
No. On that subject then, who would you relate to most in Back to the Future?
Probably Doc. Doc with a hint of Lorraine.
He's such a good character though, isn't he?
I want to be Marty. We all want to. Oh, Christopher Lloyd is amazing. Have you seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Yeah. I think Christopher Lloyd is quite underrated because he's almost like he's a bit of a comedian.
100% agree with you.
You can't tell me
he's brilliant.
That's the same guy playing Doc Brown who's playing Uncle Fester in The Addams Family.
Or Tabor in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Or Tabor, or I don't know his name, but the businessman in Suburban Commando.
Oh, when he was in something, and I was like, oh, Dream Team, which is one of my favourite movies, and we have to do a whole podcast about it because I fucking love it so much, and Michael Keaton's in it. Of
course. But Christopher Lloyd, I mean, he turned it down.
He is so great. I didn't know that.
So he didn't want to read the script at first, and he went away and he did something else, and he came back and he looked over it and he liked it. I mean, he's fantastic in it, and
he's so. I mean, can you imagine anyone else
as a duo?
Well, because originally it wasn't Michael J. Fox.
No, it was Eric Stoltz.
Some other.
And he filmed some stuff, didn't he? But it just wasn't working.
Yes, he did. Yeah, I can imagine that it wasn't working because Michael J. Fox is perfect.
Yeah, and I think as well, one of the reasons why you don't question why they're best friends is because their chemistry is so good.
That's true. That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, that is a really good point.
That you don't need to wonder why they're friends. They're just two people that get on.
Just makes sense. Like it's never made clear that he's. I don't know. None of it's really made clear, is it? Like,
not really.
You know, like, do you remember the bit? Is it before he goes back in time? It must be. And Uncle Joey is supposed to be coming out of prison,
and he doesn't.
So Lorraine's got a cake. Lorraine's the mum, for those who haven't seen it or are not that familiar with it, and he doesn't. And then when he goes back in time, he ends up in Lorraine's family home, with her parents.
He sees his Uncle Joey as a baby, doesn't he?
In the playpen, yes. And he says, you better get used to being...
you better get used to these bars, kid, yeah. So you saying that,
it's little things like that that are great.
So I'm going to skip right to the end now, because after it all, after he goes back and he's changed a few little things, and he goes back and his parents are no longer losers. His mum's not an alcoholic anymore. His dad's not a loser. Biff's the lackey now for the family. The brother and sister are successful, whereas before he left, everyone was a loser. Does the change in family imply that it was only because the dad was a loser that everyone else ended up being a loser? Because the dad was so weak.
Good. Yeah, it's
I mean, because the dad was so weak and he was so geeky and nervy, he didn't stick up for himself, and then Lorraine got stuck with him, and then
because here's the thing.
But why is Marty then like he is? Because he's like the fucking black sheep at the start. And I guess he still is the black sheep.
That's
at
true.
The end,
yeah, well, because...
he's the cool one.
Yeah, because he remembers.
Yeah. He's in the eye of the storm.
But here's the thing. Because you probably watched it more recently than I did.
On Wednesday evening.
When Lorraine is telling the story, the original story, if you like, where when they met,
hit George with a car. So the original story was Lorraine's dad hit George McFly with his car. They took George into the house to see if he was okay.
Because he was being a creepy perv, but he says that he was bird watching. And even then, even as a child, I was like,
what type of birds they
were. But
were.
even as a kid, I got that. Yeah. Even as a kid, I got
dirty
that.
bastard. Yeah.
But she says they had their first kiss at the prom, right? Enchantment Under the Sea. But what is it clear? Because in the Marty reality, if you like,
in the original one, the original reality.
Yeah. Well, what happened in the original reality that got George to kiss Lorraine?
Right. Okay.
Answer, James.
I thought it was because
I'm asking you.
Well, so in the original reality, he got knocked down by her dad. They took him in to the house to make sure he was okay. That's when Lorraine first met him properly and got to know him. And then he ended up asking her to the dance, and then they kissed then. But what is obviously missing
was there that Biff?
Oh, I don't know actually.
Do you know what I mean? Because you know,
because all the drama,
and I can't.
All the drama you assume comes from Marty turning up, but Biff was still
what happened.
Lorraine, wasn't he? He was still into Lorraine.
Because Marty says to George, his dad, but they're the same age at the moment. Guys, keep up. What Marty says to George is, right, I'm gonna be in the car in the parking lot with Lorraine, and I'm gonna put the moves on her.
Yeah, which is weird.
Which
is fucking weird.
Right. I mean, already it's.
I mean, he's obviously taking.
We're gonna deep dive into that in 1 second, right?
Go on.
So he says to George, right, I'm gonna put the moves on her. Because in the 80s future, she's very prudish and quite uptight, isn't she?
Yeah.
And the
drunk, isn't she?
Well, yeah, a little bit.
She's just fucking just pouring the vodka down when she's chatting away. So
yeah, well, we've all got our vices. But she's really uptight is the point, and she's quite sexually repressed, it seems.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot to say about that too, by the way.
Go
on. So he says to George, right, so I'm going to put the moves on her. She's going to resist, and then you pull me out of the car, punch me in the face. You've saved the day. Lorraine's going to fall in love with you. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But instead, what happens is she gets quite into it. She pulls out some whiskey. She's got a flask. There's a whole thing.
Yeah, she has a smoke.
Actually, but
Smoke.
Yeah, and Marty's
Marty's
shocked by
surprised
this
because
behaviour.
he doesn't know his mum to be like that.
And then Biff gets involved, and he wants to put the moves on her instead. And then instead Marty has to. I mean, it's basically an attempted rape scene. It's quite disturbing, actually, as an adult.
Yeah.
But in the original romantic story of George and Lorraine kissing at Enchantment Under the Sea, does he punch Biff?
No, because if he did, then Biff wouldn't be the way
Biff
he
would
was.
have
Because
behaved.
at the beginning,
yes, exactly.
Biff's still a bully. So
yeah, exactly.
But
because George is such a piece of shit. Anyway,
but
I like him,
but
he is spineless. I agree with Marty, man.
Yeah,
He's spineless.
But he does, obviously. Marty changes things, doesn't he? And that's what I mean. Admirable.
But this is no. But this is my point: is that in the original romance of George and Lorraine, he's bird watching, gets knocked over by Lorraine's dad. She falls in love with him. He invites her to the dance, and that's it.
Yeah, that's basically.
There's no sort of because
there's no drama. There's no Biff. There's nothing like that. No.
Because Marty, I see. Yes, because no, I get it. No, I get it now. I get it now. I was being really complicated.
No. But even though Biff was into Lorraine, I think in the original timeline, you have to assume that Lorraine rejected Biff's advances and went to the dance with George. They kissed, and that was it.
That was
but obviously the drama comes when Marty McFly turns up.
Yes. No. No, I get it. I was overcomplicating the.
But what he does, it's very fucking weird. But I guess at the same time, he's thinking, well, if I don't do it, I might not exist anymore. So I'm going to have to.
Well, and he knows it.
Try it on with my mum. Yeah. Which is just weird.
Yeah, I mean, that bit. What I find funny is that in the present, i.e. the 80s, she's very sort of puritanical, we think. And then it turns out, because we go back in time, going back in time. We see that she's not at all puritanical. She's a regular teenager.
Yeah.
And, she's up for a bit of mischief. No judgment here.
No.
And
we've all been there.
What I find interesting about it, and actually, I think that it's a thing that when you have kids, parents seem to me, and this is just my observation of my friends who have kids, they forget all of the shit that they did when they were teenagers. So I have a friend who will remain nameless, although I have mentioned them past. They were a bit of a wild child when they were a teenager. They were doing drugs and drinking and, sleeping with their fair amount of people. And then they had a kid, and the kid turns, 15, 16, 17. I didn't do any of those sorts of things. I can't believe that my child is behaving this way. And I was like, hold up one fucking second. Don't you remember when you were 13 and you did this, and when you were 14 you did this, and you were 15 you did this, and you were 16 you did this? And they stopped and they thought about it and they said, yeah, you're right. I said, the only fucking difference is that your kid is telling you that you did these things and you didn't tell your parents. And I think, you should give yourself some credit that your kid's telling you this shit, because we certainly did not tell our parents anything.
Yeah, but when you're
I thought that was hilarious.
When you're a kid, you think you're doing everything you're doing is unique, and no one's ever done it before, and it's like,
mate, I'm 2 years away from 40. I don't tell my parents nothing.
But I think that's why it was written, wasn't it? One of the concepts of the original film was the idea of, I think it was Bob Gale who wrote it with Robert Zemeckis, who directed it. But
Yeah.
the idea was that, I could be wrong, but I think he went to the same school, or he visited the same school that his dad went to, or something like that. And he saw a yearbook, and it had his dad, and he saw the entry for his dad. And the idea was, would I have been friends with that person
With my dad
at that time?
That is interesting, isn't it?
And that's the thing. Like,
what age are they? 17.
Yeah, and if you think of the concept,
If I met my mum,
go on.
when she was 17, well,
yeah. I mean, yeah,
she couldn't speak English, so
well,
I reckon my mum was probably more up for the crack than my dad. My dad didn't really drink, where my mum would have had a drink.
Yeah, see,
that's
it's the
that's the basis of my friendship.
No, I'm the same. My mum was, I think my dad was a bit more, reserve's the wrong word, but my dad was
conservative.
Yeah, slightly
not
more.
not the political party, but
my mum was
sort of more straight laced.
Yeah, I think my mum was a bit wild when she was younger. So, and that's the thing. If I was in Marty's shoes, it wouldn't fucking surprise me if I turned up and my mum was on the back of a car
trying to make out with you.
No, not that. That's disgusting.
Isn't it? I mean, that is the even the very first time I watched that, and I would have been,
but he's also
small child, and he's like, "What the?"
Yeah, but at the same time,
we're all like, "What?"
When he's talking to George about the plan, he knows it's gonna happen.
No, exactly. But I think he thought, because he made an assumption about his mum, right? And so I think he thought that she would turn his advances down.
Yeah.
However, I think that makes a sexist assumption, which is that women aren't as into sex as men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I mean, everyone's human, aren't they?
Right. And maybe from this 21st century perspective, we understand that women also like to enjoy sexual activity, but maybe from a 1980s perspective, it was still sort of assumed that women weren't really, like there is that sort of stereotype, isn't there, that women aren't really in the mood, and they've got a headache, and do you know what I mean? It's sort of like a chore for women to make love to their husbands, and it's like, why are we perpetuating this?
I mean,
can we talk about Biff?
It's just, I was going to say though, it's just a good job that
yes,
it's a good job that she didn't recognise Marty when.
Well, so that is something that is discussed a lot now.
And it's absolute bullshit. And I'll tell you why it's absolute bullshit. Because
please do, because I wonder if it's exactly the fucking same thing that I think.
One, it's time travel. So
yeah,
if you,
I mean, sure.
So basically, right, if I was in this situation, let's say if I was in this situation, and my mum, 30 years down the line, looks at me and goes, "Fuck, it's the same guy." She's not going to think that, is she? Because time travel doesn't exist. It's not and if it does exist, there's only one or two people that must.
Oh, but in this universe, it does exist, right?
It does exist, but the only people that know about time travel.
No, I get what you're saying.
And Doc. The other thing is that in the age of Facebook and Instagram and even going back further, MySpace, I can't really remember many people from when I was at school. So,
well, that's what I was going to say, right? And moreover, this is a guy that you knew for a week 30 years ago.
Yeah, I can't remember half of the people at school.
Oh, mate, listen, I might have told you this already, and apologies to the listeners, all four of them, There were more than that.
Two of which are us.
Apologies for repeating myself. Yeah, that's true. One of which is Paul Rudd, and the other one's Susan. So good. But I worked at Waterstones twice. So once full time for 4 years, and then I stopped working there, and then I went back for a year or so, part time. And when I was working there part time, it was a different branch. It was a whole new world. And this woman comes in, and she says to me, "Oh my God, hi Vicky, how are you?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm really well. How are you?" And she says, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good." And she says, "So are you at uni now?" And I was at uni now. And I said, "Yeah. She went, "Oh, Queen Mary." I said, "Yeah." "Doing English, right?" And I said, "Yeah. And you?" And she told me what she was doing. I don't remember. And we had a chat for 20 minutes, like it was a full-on chat. And she goes off, and I turned to my colleague and I went, "I have no idea who that woman was, but she knew
Everything
all
about
of the
you.
things about, like, so I obviously know this person, right?
I
obviously had a fucking conversation with her in my life, and I recognized her, but I have no idea who she was, what her name was, how I recognized her. I've no idea. I don't know who she is. Still to this day, I think about it, and I'm not sure.
Do you reckon, like, in 20 years' time, it's going to end up being your daughter, and she's gone back in time?
No, because she was not the same color as me.
Oh dear, I didn't expect that.
No.
But this is the other thing, is that, like, these people on the internet, they
but
go,
like, it
how
wasn't
do
20
they
years
not?
ago that I knew this girl, right?
But like the internet, they go, "Oh, how do they not know that Marty McFly is her son?" Lorraine gave birth to Marty. Like, Marty came out of her vagina. Then 17
Unless it
years,
was a C-section,
unless it
baby.
was a C-section, but
Because I did not
came
come out
out
of a vagina.
came
Thank
out
you.
of her. 17
Yes.
years later, she's not going to go, "It's the same fucking guy," is she? Come on.
No, exactly. And also, she's had 2 other kids, right? It's just such a long time, and life has passed.
Yeah.
So that is not the thing that I've got an issue with.
Go on.
And also, it's a different name. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of that, the internet goes crazy about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm fine with all of that.
Yeah.
It's not even a suspension of disbelief. I totally am on board with, you would not remember that this guy was the same guy. I agree.
You might vaguely remember the situation with Biff,
Yes.
and the manure, and like there was a guy that punched Biff and then went around on a skateboard. But years later, you're not going to be like, "Well, this is a bit strange."
Nah.
At the most, you're going to be like, "Do you know what? You look like a guy I used to know at school." That's it.
Yeah, at the most. You're right, at the most.
You
But that's the fucking most. My I might have told you this before as well. My dad was in the army, and he slept in barracks. There's a bed right next to yours, and right next to that, and right next to that, and right next to that. And so for, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, he slept right next to this guy. And the guy left. 2 weeks later, my dad could not remember this guy's name. He slept next to him for 4 years. Like, he knew him. He knew him well enough to be like, "All right, night, James," whatever. I don't Still now, my dad is like, "I feel really bad. I can't remember the guy's name." After 2 weeks, he wasn't there anymore.
So, I mean,
we weren't friends. We were bunk mates. We weren't friends. We didn't socialize outside of the barracks. because there are other people that my dad was friends with, and he does remember their names 60 years later. But because they weren't really mates, he kept himself to himself, and sure as shit, he kept himself to himself because no one remembers his fucking name.
Yeah. And that's the thing, Lorraine.
And I found that fascinating as a kid.
Yeah. And
Lorraine... But then I watched Back to the Future and went, no, I could believe that.
Yeah, because Lorraine's...
If my dad can't remember the name of the next door neighbour...
Yeah, I mean, she's found a true
it's
love.
Not even your next door neighbour.
Fucking remember Calvin Klein, is she? So what's your beef with Biff?
He is Donald Trump.
Well, we can't talk about that until number 2.
No, not yet. Sure, but he's. I mean, we will get into that deep dive later. But like,
he's a typical American high school
Biff
bully.
is such a douchebag. Yeah, he's such a douchebag. And I understand George's reluctance to stand up for himself, because sometimes it is better, isn't it, to just keep your head down and just do a thing. But I don't know, man. You know, like in what are we going to call it? Reality 1, right? Like the first reality that we see Marty in.
Yeah, where Biff is still
and George is still yes, and George is still fucking under the thumb.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could stay with him if I was Lorraine. And I think George is lovely.
That's why she turns to drink.
Yes, I know, but I think I would just ask for a divorce. I mean, I just don't think that I would be married to him. If I was dating a guy, and you know,
but back then, maybe
I'm not such an asshole.
Maybe back then it was frowned upon to get divorced, and
yes, but I just wouldn't have married him if this horrible asshole was bullying my boyfriend. And he was just taking it in the way that George takes it. I don't know, man. I don't think that I would be able to stay with that guy. And I like nice guys. You know, it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, Biff's great. Biff's such an arse.
Yeah.
Do we know if he's married in reality 1?
I don't think he is.
We don't, do we? We don't know anything about anything.
Yeah, I don't think he is.
No.
He's such a dick. He's probably divorced. He's probably divorced. But then when Marty comes back and he's fucking cleaning cars and shit, he doesn't strike me as the type of person married, you know.
The thing with Biff as well is the actor who plays him is such a lovely guy.
Yeah.
And I feel really bad because every time I see him in anything, I'm like, ugh, Biff. And then I'm like, no, I have to sort of physically remind myself that he's a really nice guy.
He knows that he's
I know
for that. And he's actually
and that makes him nicer.
Yeah,
because he's like, you know,
he's actually a very good actor though. And actually, the one thing about the films, and particularly number 1, is the actors are very good at playing older versions.
Yes.
You know, when I was a kid, I never questioned it. And
even as an adult, and you can see that they're playing older versions. I still do think that they look really good. You know, it's not it hasn't, the special effects, if you want to call them that, hasn't aged, been.
It hasn't. Do you know what?
You know what I mean? Like, no, it's really good.
You don't watch it now and go, oh, that looks a bit dated. You know?
No, exactly.
How many times do you think you've seen number 1, and do you think you've seen number 1 less than number 2?
I reckon I've seen 1 10 times. I reckon I've seen number 2 like 15 times, and I've seen number 3 twice.
Ridiculous. We'll get on to that, but ridiculous. Do you?
I know that I've seen 3 twice. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's 2 times.
Do you think you need to have seen number 1 to enjoy number 2?
No. Well.
And to get number 2?
No, I don't. But, well, I do think that one has to watch all three.
See, whenever I watch
don't
them,
be pick and mixing them.
I never go, like, maybe when I was younger, I think I probably watched 2 first.
No,
but
oh my god,
no, like when I was introduced to Back to the Future, I'm sure 2 might have been
you're
the
a
first one I
psychopath.
saw.
Well, this explains a lot about your personality.
Possibly 3. But
you're a maniac.
But I never just go, do you know what? I fancy watching Back to the Future Part 2 today. Like, if I'm going to watch Back to the Future, I have to watch it at the start, and you've got to do it in order.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, you see, I think I could watch 2 by itself. I like 2 so much that I could just, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure about 3.
We'll come back to that.
More recently, since knowing you, I watched 3, right? I mean, I've known you for a few years now, but it's because of knowing you that I was like, right, I'm going to give 3 another go. I'm going to watch it properly. You know, I'm going to, no judgment, come on. Yeah. Forget that it's the Wild West or whatever your hang-ups are.
Wiki, wild, wild.
And, yeah, exactly. And I watched 3, and I remember telling you in a pub, I watched 3, I really liked it. And you were like, oh, thank God, come on, yes, this is, yes, good.
It's one whole movie. That's all it is. It's all one whole movie.
Yeah,
you can't have 2 and 3.
But
I do
think, But I do think personally that I like 2 so much that I can watch it by itself. Like, I enjoy watching it.
But you've got the knowledge of.
There's a part of me, you see, of 1, of course, and 2 and 3, and you know, I know the whole thing. Yeah, no, that's true. But like, if 3 is on, I'm a bit like, well, I'll see what else is on. You know, when it's on ITV2, because it's always on ITV2. 2 and 3 are always on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why.
Yeah. Number 1 is
not as much.
Yeah, very
it is neglected. Maybe it costs more money.
Well, because it's the original, I don't know. But you prefer
film
to 1.
Yeah. 2 is my fave. 3 is your fave.
What about number 1? And do you enjoy the dance scene, the dance part of it, where Michael J. Fox gets up and
what do you think of the idea that it is problematic? Do you know why it's problematic?
What?
So he starts playing Johnny Be Good.
Yes.
And cousin rings up Chuck.
Marvin Berry.
And says, hey.
You hear that new sound you're looking for?
Rings up Chuck. Yeah. Right. So what do you think about the idea that whole scene is problematic? Do you know what I mean by problematic?
Well, I know what problematic
in a 21st century. Yeah, but in a very specifically a 21st century PC world, not the shop.
Oh, I've never thought of it like that, because of white boys playing.
Yes.
The rock and
there's
roll.
A whole thing.
Oh, I bet they're fucking.
There's a whole thing on the internet. There's a whole thing on the internet about
film anymore, can you?
Look, yeah. So there's this idea that, I don't know, man, that somehow it's been contrived to be this.
The white man invented rock and roll.
Yeah.
So,
and it's like, oh mate, that's not how anyone was reading it.
I've got a counteract for that. Counter argument for that.
Go for it, baby.
So my counter argument for that is, in that scene where he says, you know that new sound you're looking for? Well, listen to this. Mike McFly is halfway through the song anyway. By the time Marvin Berry gets to hold up the phone receiver to what Marty's playing, Chuck
Yeah.
only hears a few bars, if that. So my thoughts were that because obviously Chuck didn't hear the lyrics, he didn't hear the beginning or anything. What Chuck has done is, from what he heard, that he's used that as a basis, and then he's gone on
and
to
has
write.
extrapolated because he's such a
Yeah.
great artist.
And then he has gone on
Yeah.
to write the whole of Johnny Be Good. A black singer, rock and roll star, has gone on to write Johnny Be Good without you know.
We're assuming that rock and roll started in 1955 with fucking Johnny Be Good, or 1956 with Johnny Be Good.
Did it?
I don't know when it came out.
No, because
right?
Johnny.
No, it certainly didn't.
No, but
certainly didn't.
Johnny Be Good came out later.
The whole jazz things, yeah, and the whole jazz movement came out of rhythm and blues, not R&B, rhythm and blues, right? And jazz and all of that. And so I feel like that reading of it being problematic because a white dude apparently invented rock and roll just dismisses so much more black music history than one movie making up one song.
Yeah.
Because like Buddy Holly was part of the rock and roll scene. He was heavily influenced by the black musicians.
Well,
and I think
on radio, they thought Buddy Holly was black, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah, I mean, which is ridiculous because you listen to Buddy Holly now, he does not sound black. But
my dad,
then, I think because of the music he was playing, they thought he was black.
5 artists.
One of which being Buddy?
Yeah.
I love Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly. Bob Dylan. Mark Bolan. Kate Bush. Cyndi Lauper. That's it.
None of them are black.
No, that's true. My dad's a racist. That's what I'm telling you.
Your dad is Back to the Future Part 1 of dads.
He is. Yeah. No, but that is all my dad likes. I mean, anyone else, he likes one song by one person, one song. I'll tell you what song he likes, and it surprised me. He really likes the song It Started With a Kiss by Hot Chocolate. They're black.
It started with a kiss.
Yep. So he's not racist. He likes one black, but and I tell you, I was very surprised that he liked Kate Bush or Cyndi Lauper.
I love both of them.
I love Kate Bush. My dad has on vinyl A Kick Inside.
Oh, it's great.
Oh my God. That's such a great album. I used to, so every now and then I'd make my dad take all of the vinyl out and then I'd play his records on the record player. And so you can see behind me I have a record player.
Yes.
My dad bought me this record player.
Excellent.
I own 6 records. I mean, I don't own very many records.
Do you have the Kick
But
Inside?
there is something lovely about record. No, because I tried to steal it from my dad when I moved out, and my dad bought me this. I said, "Can I have it? Is that cool? Like, you know, would that be okay?
Yeah.
Can I steal some of your records?" My dad said, "Of course, Vicky, you can have whatever you want, right?" And so I went to the cupboard that all the vinyl was in. Do you think I could find it? No. Well, our hypothesis is that elder brothers and sisters, not naming any names, Matthew, Michelle, one of them, stole it already.
Yeah. They're just doing what you were going to do.
Yeah, but at least I was going to have the decency to ask. They didn't ask. This is the thing, right? Matthew borrowed some CDs from Stephen.
Yeah.
And borrowed some VHS from me. Several years pass, and then he's making claims that they're his. And here's the kicker. Oh, this is so hilarious. I was in his house once. This is before DVDs really took off. And he was making claims that they were his videos, right? And I stood next to his videos, and I suddenly had an epiphany and a memory, like a thunderbolt through my brain. Do you know what I mean? Like lightning jong, jong, jong. And I picked up Labyrinth and I took it off of his shelf and I opened the cassette tape and I took the sleeve out and it said on it, Victoria Stokes, age 11. And it had my name and address and the date that I'd written this and how old I was. And I was like, this is mine, bitch. And, you know, you can't argue with that. He still tried to, but he couldn't.
You branded it. You branded it with your...
Fucking, that's mine. It's my fucking video.
So now I'm going to relay some interesting facts about Back to the Future Part 1. And I want your opinion on these. And these are some that you may have heard, you may not have heard them, but I'm sure, Vicky, you will have an opinion. So, the time machine was originally conceived as a refrigerator rather than a car.
Yes, I've heard that. I think that it's good that it's a car, because the refrigerator thing, when I read about that, I was just like, well, that's just silly. And also the DeLorean, of all of the cars, the DeLorean,
it's more famous for being in Back to the Future, isn't it, than actually...
Of course. Yeah. And although the what is it called, gullwing,
the doors, which would be terrible if you were parking somewhere, you wouldn't be able to get out of the
yes, no, absolutely. But there was a Lamborghini, I think it's the Lamborghini Countach, has the gullwing doors, right?
Okay.
But like, no one even gives a shit about a Lamborghini Countach. It's more about the DeLorean.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, man, that's what makes it...
And actually, if they bring out any car
special
with them kind of doors, everyone would be like, oh, it's like the Back to the Future car. They'd never say,
exactly,
oh, it's like a DeLorean. It's a Back to the Future car, isn't it? That's what it is.
The only reason why I know what a DeLorean is at all is because it was in the Back to the Future. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
So in the, yeah, I mean...
like the two things are just they're interlocked now forever.
Yeah, if it was a fridge, also logistically.
Oh, a fucking fridge!
What happens?
It's just yeah, no, you're right. Logistically, you
wouldn't have got any of that amazing, you know, driving down Hill Valley down the street.
And also,
to get
there's
to the
something kind of beautiful that it has to reach a certain miles per hour.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it's very 88 miles per hour is very
like if it, and yes, exactly, because if it was 90, it would be rubbish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also, like, you open a fridge and then you close a fridge and then there's no movement. There's no
romance about it. There's no romance.
No, there's no exactly. There's no
so
adventure.
What do you think about the fact that the head of Universal Pictures originally wanted them to change the name of Back to the Future to Spaceman from Pluto, thinking that Back to the Future would put people off?
The thing about Back to the Future as a title is it linguistically doesn't make any sense, does it? Right?
Which is what makes it so poetic.
Exactly. So I think that if you called it anything else, it would be shit, basically, because you are going back to the future, although it's the present, but it's not the present because you were in the past. And so that's what makes it a sort of fun riddle as a title, and that's the fun thing about it. Spaceman from Pluto, well, he's not a spaceman, he's not from Pluto. That's the name of the novel that George McFly writes. Which, you know, so the idea that they wanted to make that the title makes it a little fun fact right? Which is lovely, and that's where it deserves to be. That's
And
a little fun fact.
And there's
Do you
that,
know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's that wonderful thing that you only find really nowadays in 80s and maybe early 90s films, where at some point they get in the title of the film, don't they, into the script?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We're sending you Back to the Future.
Have you ever seen that episode of Family Guy where Peter is in the cinema and it's like it might be a series of snippets of them saying the name of the film, and he's like, ah, and I'm like, yeah, I do that.
A little bit of excitement. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, oh, I'm just a family guy. Like, I like that you said it.
I love you, man.
And yes, exactly. Oh, mate, I love you, man. I mean, Bridesmaids doesn't really work, it doesn't really work as a movie. I'm not a massive fan of Bridesmaids, so to be honest.
Controversial.
It is controversial, I know, and I really wanted to love it so much, and I didn't. But yes, exactly. So when they say it, you're like, they said the name. I mean, I just think that if they called it something like Great Scott would be better than Spaceman from Pluto.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I can't imagine part
all
2
of the fucking
and
names.
part 3 being called Spaceman from Pluto Part 2. And imagine part 3 set in the Wild West called Spaceman from Pluto Part 3. You'd be like, what the fuck am I watching?
Back to the Future is such a great title.
And it does make sense because they are sending
it does make sense.
to the future.
Back to the Future from 1955.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Their problem is they're overthinking.
Thick as shit.
Yeah. They're overthinking the fact that 1985 was the present.
Yeah.
And it's but
the majority of the movie set in 55.
Is set in 55. Yeah. Exactly. So exactly. Shut up, Bob, Gail, Robert Zemeckis, all of you, anyone.
Yeah. I love how rounded it is in the sense that, you got 1955, 85, 1885, 2015. It's all very,
2015.
Yeah, well, we'll be chatting about that. So
those were the days.
Did you also know that Crispin Glover, who plays Marty's dad, is 3 years younger than Michael J. Fox?
Oh, I didn't know he was 3 years younger.
Yeah.
I did know that all of them were about the same age.
Yeah. I mean, when he's playing
Michael J. Fox looks
he's a young,
isn't he? I mean, even now, even with the Parkinson's and everything, unfortunately for him, and I wish him well, he does look young, doesn't he? He's got a young face.
Oh, gotcha.
Like you and I. You and I have very young faces.
Yeah, I mean,
you're 58 and I'm 63. So
we don't look a day over.
We look very well.
No.
38.
So the dance, the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
I don't know if you recall, but who the fuck is the ginger kid?
What ginger kid?
So after Biff has tried it on with Lorraine, and George comes along and punches him, and George has suddenly got some bollocks, and they go walking off to have a dance. Then some ginger prick comes along, some fucking nerdy, geeky ginger prick in braces comes along, pushes.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Pushes George aside and goes, I'm dancing with her now, and then starts like cackling like some moron. Fucking George walks off as if to say,
he's a fucking pussy, isn't he? Isn't he though?
But this is what I mean. You've just You've just punched Biff, and then you're gonna let this fucking ginger prick walk all over.
I think
he does come back and then shoves the ginger kid away. But where the fuck has this ginger kid come from? All of a sudden,
okay,
out of nowhere.
Here's two theories.
What is the point in that? The only reason that scene is there is to emphasize Marty's hand disappearing and fucking.
Well,
it's just to create a bit of fucking drama and tension, but it's not needed. Like, we've already got a bully, and he's been punched in the fucking jaw. We don't need some ginger dick.
Yes, but I think it is there to underscore that George McFly has found his cojones. And also, it's to show maybe that not only was George being bullied by Biff, the bully of all bullies, but he was being bullied by everybody because he was such a cuck, such a beta male. I don't know, though. I don't know. Maybe.
Is there anything
like it was? I feel like it was to underscore that he has really found his balls, which I do think is a little bit
overkill.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah,
because Biff is fucking oh my god, Biff is like the fucking worst, right? This is why whenever I watch anything post BTTF, right? Like in Harry Potter, and there's Draco
Malfoy.
Yeah, and then he's got the two little subordinates who he basically also bullies.
Yeah,
right. I sort of feel like Biff was the beginning of that trope of sort of top dog,
high school bully,
and then two. Yeah, and then two.
Because he's got the gang, isn't he? Billy Zane's one of them.
But they're also bullied, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're his friends and they're all in it together. He's also bullying them.
As in bullying them to be his friends. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I see this in Harry Potter, and I see it in other things. I see it in Mean Girls, for example, from a sort of female point of view. But I feel like that's the beginning of that trope of there's the top dog alpha bully who's bullying two subordinates who are just so scared to be on the receiving end of the bully's wrath, and so they're willing to put up with that fucking bullshit. I mean, this is the thing is, I've borne witness to that sort of behavior, and I'm not saying that I'm so bloody clever or anything, but I'm so physically repulsed by bullying that if that happens in my vicinity, I'm just like, I don't think you're a nice person and you can go fuck yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, I physically can't take it. So, like, if we were at high school together or secondary school together and you were being a dick, and we were in a sort of group environment where you were the head honcho and I was the subordinate, I say this in the full knowledge that I'm the sort of person who wants to fall in line. I don't want to kick up any sort of stink, but I can't abide being mean so much that I'm just like, oh mate, I can't be a part of this.
Yeah.
And even if it means that I will inflict your anger on me, it's like, that's fine, I don't care, that's fine. I can't hack it physically. It's a physical reaction. I just can't do it. I'm just like, ugh. And so every time I watch Back to the Future and you see Billy Zane and the other guy being like, oh, I'm just gonna fall in line with Biff because I just don't want him to pick on me, I'm like, oh, I hate you more than I hate Biff. And like, I get it. I get that you don't want to direct people's anger onto you, or their attention onto you, their negative attention onto you. But it's just it's so spineless.
Yeah.
Because Biff is spineless, right? I mean, there's no
Yeah,
two
yeah,
ways about it.
yeah.
I mean, George is spineless in a different
Yeah,
way, and
yeah. But Biff's
I
just an
feel like,
arse, isn't he?
yes, and I just think that picking on people who are physically weaker than you or mentally, I mean, I don't think that George is mentally weaker than him, although no,
But
do you know what,
Biff
he
knows
is
that
mentally weaker.
George is more
Yeah.
intelligent
Yes,
because he's getting
but
him
the
to do his
fact that George
homework
is
and stuff like
cleverer,
that.
no, exactly, but the fact that George is cleverer doesn't make him stronger intelligent. It doesn't make him stronger mentally, which is proven, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't want to brag or anything, but I'm quite a bright woman. But being bright doesn't make you mentally stronger than people, but also I don't know. I don't know. I was bullied at primary school, and then I had a big old fight, and I nearly broke a boy's arm. I nearly
What?
broke a boy's arm. Yeah.
There's me thinking you were
Yeah.
George McFly. You were fucking Biff Tannen all along.
No. I wasn't. I was neither. This is my point, right? This is what sort of pisses me off about Hollywood.
Biff McFly.
Is that
Is that who you are?
I was Biff McFly, because they always paint the clever dick as weak, physically weak, and the idiot as physically strong. But there is a fucking middle person who is quite bright and will fuck you up.
So,
and I've never seen that in a movie. And maybe I should write a script.
Where does
Vicky Stokes?
Where do you think Marty falls into that then?
Well, Marty's the look, you know, like, look, he's not physically strong and he's not particularly clever, but he's really cool. He's really nice. He will
Streetwise,
fight
isn't he?
his fucking corner. He'll fight, exactly. He'll fight his corner, and he ain't stupid, right? He's not stupid, but he's not the little class SWAT. But it really pisses me off that Hollywood does this, like, oh, if you're a SWAT, they do it with The Simpsons, right?
Yeah.
If you're a little SWAT, then you're weak. Oh, that's not necessarily true, though, is it?
Yeah, it's a stereotype, isn't it?
Because I'll fuck you up.
I wouldn't like to walk past you in a dark alley. Have you?
Go on.
No, I was going to say, is there anything else in the novelisation that's elaborated on, or that you read and went, "Ooh, I didn't think of that"? Or
although it's a novelisation of the movie, there is still this sort of extra elements.
Yeah.
That you go, like, there's a little bit of a hint about Lorraine's thought process, which I find fascinating. I've always liked Lorraine.
Yeah, I mean, the actress
George
Leah Thompson, she's very good as well.
Yeah, she is. Yes,
but she's a very good character all the way through. And but she's a good actress all the way through. Like in number 2, there's an alternative version of her, obviously, and then number 3, it's not Lorraine, but it's Leah Thompson playing her McFly.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing that the books, like the novel, would be missing for me is the epic music, because you can't have. I mean, everything falls into place.
No, you're right.
Everything falls into place for that film, and the music is amazing. Like,
no, you're right.
Every time it kicks in, you get goosebumps. That bit, you know, with the skateboard chase and stuff, you know, and that doesn't last long. That's a little bit of music, and then you've got the
just the, but it also just mate, just the
as soon
Huey
as you
Lewis
start,
and the News.
oh,
No, I know.
So you've
But just
got
the Huey and Lewis and the News, and then when they do the audition, and it's Huey
and
from
like,
Huey Lewis and the
you're
News.
just too darn loud.
Yes.
It's great.
So all of those sorts of things. No, you're absolutely right. But that's another thing about 80s movies.
The
they have
soundtracks
that
was brilliant.
kind of, oh, mate. I was watching Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh. The heat is on.
And just every now and then you get that, you know,
Axel F.
yeah. And just every now and then in a scene you would get,
and all the guys. No, you don't. All the guys doing is fucking army crawling to stick a fucking banana in an exhaust pipe. And it makes it epic.
Yes.
Why
can't we bring that back?
Michael J. Fox, skateboarding around the square on a fucking skateboard. And it's epic. It is brilliant. And
you're absolutely right.
But you're right, though. Not just the score,
one of my problems,
the actual music in it.
Yeah.
Power of Love.
One of my problems is that I am thinking of that when I'm reading it.
Yeah. But what you
true.
could do is you could play the music in the background while you're reading it.
Oh, I could do that, but I was on the tube.
On your headphones. Download it.
Yeah, no, I need to. Okay, I'm going to download. All right, I'll do that.
Don't take money. Don't take fame.
Oh, mate. It's just...
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't get that anymore.
You don't get epic soundtracks anymore like that.
No.
I'm not just talking about the score. I'm talking about all the the commercial music they chuck in.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
No. Oh,
I've actually been to Hill Valley.
I know, and
in Universal Studios.
Jealous.
Do you know what though? They haven't changed it much, but what I will say is, and it's obviously all to do with cinematography, but it looks smaller in real life. Yeah. It looks like a massive square. When Marty's walking around it for the first time, and he's like, "What the fuck is this? Am I in a dream? Blah,
is
blah,
it
blah,
a
blah,
dream?
Blah. Yeah, it's got to be a dream." It looks huge, but when we went there, and again, they haven't changed it. They haven't changed the set. It's because it's the backlot, isn't it, of Universal. They haven't changed it, and it wasn't as
because you were in California.
Yes.
Because I went to Universal Resort, but in Florida.
Not as good. It's too big. I think as well. Listen, the reason why I like Universal and Disney California is because I guess it's the original, and that's where the magic happened. Do you know what I mean? Like that's where fucking Michael J. Fox was walking along that pavement. That's what I mean.
Sure.
There was a hoverboard around here at some point.
But
what wine is
I am drinking Soave. Or Sauve.
Sauve.
Which is the cheapest wine that doesn't taste like vinegar, right? 1. 2, I bought it from Aldi, so it's really cheap. It's inoffensive. You know what I mean? It's like a soda pop of a wine.
Yeah.
And that's Kilburn. Can you hear that?
It's all kicking off in Kilburn.
It's always kicking off in Kilburn.
Yeah.
That's all I hear. Woo!
I hear.
Also, what I hear.
Go on.
I sleep with the window open because this flat's really warm, and sometimes at 2 or 3 in the morning, I hear what may be a murder or what I think is foxes.
Oh yeah, that yeah.
You're like Jesus fucking.
I've always thought that you hear the scream, and apparently it's foxes having sex. you hear it and you just think, oh, there's foxes out there having sex. But what if like some
I've
woman
thought exactly this.
getting raped or something, and you could have prevented it, or at least, you know, done something, and you've just turned over in your bed and just gone, ask fucking foxes again having sex?
Well, I heard once that instead of shouting help, you should shout fire.
Or I'm not a fox having sex.
Probably. I mean, if you've got the wherewithal to do that, then hats off to you, man.
I mean,
it is something that I've considered.
That's what I mean.
Recently,
if I was being raped, I'd have to make sure people didn't realise I was a fox.
This has been a Head Full of Straw production of Vicky Goes On and On with Vicky Stokes and James Wells.